Let's go.
Fucking ready. I'm ready.
I'm
To
ready.
get it out.
Hello.
Are we live now?
Yeah,
We're live.
We're live and on
We're
the
live
record.
in 3, 2, 1. Just fucking
Yeah.
kidding. It's right now.
It's right now.
Right now.
In the past. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me before now?
There was a brief moment that I couldn't hear you when we first connected. It was just you angrily staring at your monitor. I thought you were gonna reach through somehow and like tear my throat out.
That's how I wait for people. Just with anger and stress. High
Thinking
blood
about
pressure.
all the other things you could be doing this evening, aside from sitting here doing this, you're like, fuck, I could be doing my 27th run on Dark Souls 3 right now, but no, I'm sitting here recording a podcast.
It's very important that I play Dark Souls until my brains fall out. It's important.
I saw you post a little snippet of something on Twitter I watched briefly.
Yeah, every once in a while something interesting happens and I try to remember to post it. It was I was fighting a boss, and at the very end I killed the boss and they killed me at the same time, and I got the credit for it. So it was sweet.
Take your wins where you can get them then.
Yeah, fuck it. It's fun stuff.
Did it spawn you back at the bonfire still, and then you just had to like run back in and pick up stuff? Or
yeah, pretty much. Yeah. It just, I had to go run back and go get the souls, and it was a lot of souls. Just saying.
Yeah.
Sometimes I get them souls. How has your week been?
Pretty good.
Pretty good.
There's been
working and writing.
Working and writing. Yep, that's the name of the game. Did a lot of yard work over the weekend. And
yeah.
I've been playing a lot of Outriders still. The game is strangely addicting.
Tell me once more. What's that game about?
That's the one. It's basically it's like Gears of War mixed with Borderlands.
Gears of Borderlands. I get it.
It's one of those games where in the beginning it's sort of slow and not terribly fun, but then as you level up and start getting more and more abilities, and then you get the better loot drops start happening, then it's that addictive loot cycle where you're constantly just wanting to keep going because you keep getting progressively better items, and so it's like an addiction,
little new things, little drips of dopamine, excitement, surprise.
Well, the nice thing about this game compared to Borderlands is kind of like an open world setting, so you spend a lot of time running back and forth.
Yeah.
Whereas in this, the areas are much smaller. They're like Gears of War size levels. So you're kind of going from like a linear corridor to like an arena where you do a big fight and then you go through. And so you feel like you're like in the moment to moment gameplay more. It's not like Borderlands where you get in a gunfight, then you hop in a car and drive across the map to a quest point and then maybe have another gunfight. Like you're kind of always just in motion, always doing something. So
nice. A little linear with some RPG.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Outriders USA.
I feel like you'd like it because you like third-person cover shooters, don't you? Sort of, kind of.
I like first-person shooters more, and I like third-person. But third-person shooters are good, like Uncharted and stuff. Those are good.
Yeah. So you'd probably like it. I mean,
yeah. I like RPGs.
Yeah, it's got a lot of really cool. Like, there's 4 different classes, and each one actually plays like completely different and has a whole suite of different abilities. And sometimes those RPGs, like, they have different classes, but they all kind of play the same or they feel similar. But
yeah,
I played a couple of the classes, and both of them play like completely different. And so it was one of them I prefer over the other one. It's a lot more fun, but
nice.
Kind of up to your play style.
Is it like 4-person co-op?
3.
3-person co-op. Yeah. Nice. That seems to be the co-op standard nowadays. 3 people.
Yeah, I play most of it just by I just play most of it by myself. The matchmaking's been a little wonky with it because it just came out a couple weeks ago, and the servers were having some issues the first week. So I've mostly played it by myself, and then Vanessa started playing it last weekend with me too, because she kind of saw me playing it and wanted to get into it. So
nice.
I joined into her game, and I get to, I'm obviously a higher level because I've been playing longer, so it kind of helps her out in her game, having me run around with her. So
makes it easier for sure. Yeah, Nice. I've just been playing Dark Souls. I played with Joey last night. We just ran around doing stuff. Pretty fun.
Yeah, I haven't
Nice.
played those games in a long time. I'm kind of just waiting for like a new one. And
Yeah.
I played through Demon Souls, that PS5 remake,
Yeah.
like late last
Same
year, but
stuff.
I haven't played the Souls like games. I like playing them every once in a while. Like I
Yeah.
start like I got my fix with Demon Souls, and now I'm like, I'll just wait till From Software puts out Elden
Yeah.
Ring or whatever
Yeah.
they're gonna do next. I don't
Yeah. I
because
heard they were
there's
gonna
a
do a remake of Bloodborne for the
I feel like
PS5.
they should, or
I
like
heard
a
about that.
PS5 version of it.
Yeah.
The game is so popular, it's ridiculous that they haven't kind of announced that or done something with it, like just made a PS5 version that runs better.
Yeah.
Um, but there's a lot of like smaller developers that kind of have made games like that. There was one that came out last year called Mortal Shell that I played a little bit on the
Yeah.
Xbox, and it was pretty good, but it's kind of like it's a weird thing when I'm playing it because I'm like, these games, I'd rather just play the From Software game instead of like these weird little knockoffs that try to do their
Yeah.
own thing. Like none of them are as good or as addicting
Yeah.
for some reason. Because I played the Surge, both of the Surge games for a decent amount of time, Lords of
Yeah.
the Fallen, and like they're all decent, but it's like there's
Yeah.
already a team that does these perfectly, basically. And
Yeah.
so everything else just feels kind of pales in comparison.
Yeah, they kind of defined the gameplay, and it's so well developed that if you like it, it's hard to duplicate. Um, like that Remnant game, like a lot of
Mhm.
it was, had made sense, but they end up nerfing the wrong stuff and making the wrong stuff too hard. I don't know. Dark Souls just has a decent balance to everything, even just the map design, like you feel like you're about to, run out of everything, and then there's a bonfire about, just around the corner.
A game that actually does took some of those ideas and executed them really well was Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. I don't know if you
Oh,
played that one
sure.
at all.
I never played it, but
I
my
think you would
nephew
like
had
it.
it.
Yeah, I feel like you should check it out. I mean, I know you're not like the biggest Star Wars fan, but it's just a really cool, like I think it's because you like that kind of gameplay, you'd really like the game a lot. Like it plays exactly like a Dark Souls game, but you have force powers and you use a
Yeah.
lightsaber. And what's interesting about that game is that they actually have difficulty settings, so it's like you can play it on like a really high difficulty setting and make it very similar to like a Dark Souls, or you can bump it down to like an easier one and it's similar gameplay, but the enemies don't destroy you in like 3 hits.
Yeah.
So like Vanessa played through that one because she's a huge Star Wars fan, and she just played through it on like the easiest difficulty so she could like get through it without wanting to rip her own hair out, and she like had a lot more fun with it. I think I played it on like the normal setting, which was actually pretty hard on some of the bosses.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Yeah,
figured
maybe I might
worth checking
try
out.
something. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah,
I don't buy a lot of games.
I know.
I'm super cheap, man. I just like I gotta really get up the courage to buy stuff. It takes me forever to like decide to buy anything. I barely want to go get gas in the car. I'm like
Gas sucks because you're
super
just like
frugal.
you're paying for a necessity. That's never fun.
Yeah, it's like I think I ended up buying was it maybe I think Remnant was free, but I bought this other game for like $6. I don't think I ever played it. Like I just don't like spending money. My mom keeps being like, "What do what do you do? What do you do for fun?" It's like I just use what I
Played Dark
have.
Souls 3.
I play Dark Souls and I play my guitar. I bought the guitar, which was pretty spendy, and after that, it's like I don't need to go spending money on my own happiness. I'm happy enough with less.
Well, I mean, in the video game department, you're not alone. I think there's a lot of people who there's like a handful of games they really like and they just keep revisiting them. And
Yeah.
every once in a while, they'll add a new one into the rotation. But
Yeah.
I mean, look at all the people who just play Call of Duty every year. And that's just all they
Yeah.
play. Every year they pick up the new Call of
You
Duty and then they just keep going.
play it for like a year and then just get the new one.
It's like the sports games, like Madden
Yeah.
and stuff. Kind of what Call of Duty's become.
Yeah.
Whereas me, I
for
like to
sure.
play as much as I can. Like I fucking
Yeah.
buy games all the time. I just pre-ordered like 4 games.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
way too much money to spend at once, but there's like I pre-ordered Returnal, which comes out on PS5 at the end of the month. I pre-ordered Resident Evil 8 that comes out the week after that. Then the week after that is Mass Effect Legendary Edition
Yeah.
that I pre-ordered.
Yeah.
So it's like I just stacked a whole bunch of games up back to back. So I'm gonna be busy as fuck in May.
Yeah. You should create a Twitch where you just play them so people can see games that they never played.
I've thought about doing that, but there's
A lot of
something
people do that.
like when I play games, it's like my time for myself. I don't really
Sure.
like, I don't want to be in front of like an audience trying to play and entertain, because then you feel like you got to entertain people. And I feel like I wouldn't play games how I want to play them. Cause, you know, if you're playing like Mass Effect, for example, you know, like in Mass Effect 2, you have to do the mining thing where you
Mhm.
scan the planets and shoot
Yeah.
probes. And it's like, I feel like I wouldn't want to do that if I had people watching me because I'm like, who the fuck wants to watch me mine planets for an hour to get
Yeah.
resources? Or, you know, if you're playing like a game like Resident Evil and you're trying to take it slow and really explore, I feel like I would
Mhm.
feel kind of rushed because I want to get to like the next exciting moment to keep people enthralled.
Yeah.
So I would just ruin the way I play games, I feel like, if I tried to do something like that.
Yeah, I think that's the expectation. I was thinking just sheer gameplay. Like you don't even talk. Like you just play it and people can
Mhm.
watch it and it's like a game through like a playthrough.
Yeah.
And then people because you because you play so many more games than most people. And a lot of people before they play a game will just watch videos of the game being played so they can see what the gameplay is like.
That's always what I look for too. I watch trailers, you know,
Yeah.
but usually they're CGI or they're
Yeah.
like
Cutscenes.
accentuating
Yeah.
particular spots. But it's like, no, I just want to see somebody playing this game for like 15 minutes just to see what
Yeah.
how the game is. Like, what is
Yeah.
this game? How does
For
it
sure.
play?
Yeah.
That's like the biggest selling point for me. Because obviously, if you watch just a couple of trailers, it's gonna
Yeah.
get you, it's designed to get you hyped up. It doesn't really, it's not like the real game.
Yeah, I definitely watch those before you buys or like
Mhm.
tips and tricks at the beginning. Like I did that with Ghost of Tsushima, and it really helped because I got a couple items at the very beginning that made it so like I just like didn't run out of health or something as quickly. So
Mhm.
it just made the whole thing a lot easier. Um, but I think sometimes the menu systems can be really annoying. Like there's a game called The Hunt, and it's a port from a PC game, and they just sort of kept the menu system of the PC,
Mm.
and so you have
Yeah.
like this little mouse running around, and it's like really weird. And it would make sense if you had a mouse, like you could just hover over things really quickly, but the interface is really kind of annoying. It's
Yeah.
hard to
You're like,
tell when you're going back and forth through it.
like that game, those cursor menus kind of became popular with Destiny because Destiny uses that like
Yeah, it does
cursor
kind
that
of
you
have that.
move
Yeah,
around a menu.
when you look at the
So I feel
map and
like
stuff.
a lot of games that they're kind of taking the PC version and porting they just leave that in there and you just manipulate the cursor with your analog
Dick
sticks
with your
or
penis.
with, I mean, if you could manipulate an
I
analog
just
stick
put
with your
my
penis,
my the controller down, where my crotch is, and then
you
I
sort of
just
flex your
whack it.
cock and let it move around.
Yeah, just flex it. It's like a thumb. It's like another thumb. I need a what is it? The what's the third stick? The X or what is it? R3, right? You call it R3 and L3.
No, when you click them
I
down.
need a R4 and L4 for my dick. Nice.
Nice.
Much
Sorry.
much better.
I don't know
Much
why
better.
it's like bothering me.
It actually is
I'm tr
better.
I'm trying to like line it up with the ceiling right there.
Well,
Or
yeah.
like right where the ceiling breaks, and I
Yeah.
don't know why. It's just a fucking OCD thing.
For the listeners,
Doesn't matter.
Channing is obsessing over his framing
The
on
the
his
angle, yeah.
Zoom camera. It's got to be perfect, or else
Hmm.
don't do it.
Well, I turned lights on this time because last time we recorded and it started to get dark at the end, and I was like, oh, I had no lights on in there, so it just gets gradually darker and darker on my side.
Yeah, right.
Whereas you, it looks like you're just fucking sitting in Satan's asshole right now, just oblivion.
Satan's asshole.
I don't know.
What
I
would
was
that
trying to think of
possibly
something.
look like?
A
Like,
black
wouldn't it be
hole.
dark and I get it because the background. But at
Yeah,
least I
yeah.
got like nice lighting on me.
Yeah,
I got the
that's the
camera.
fire inside of Satan's ball sack. That's
Yeah,
like
I
right
guess
there by the
if you were to
asshole.
go into his asshole, it's like a void, and essentially there's nothing for miles, and all there is just a spotlight on you, and he's just waiting to see what you'll do, and then reaches in his own asshole and plucks you
Yeah.
out.
I could see Satan really being into some weird ass games, like some ass play like that.
I
Like he just puts people up in there and just sees what
Yeah,
they do. Just what are they
I
gonna
would
what's gonna
think if
happen?
you were in there, you would be just like it'd be like a
Uncomfortable.
sphincter, it'd just be like you'd be like it'd be like being in an intestine.
He just like flexes his anal muscles and then laughs maniacally
And
as he
then you
hears
just
you
get
squirming and
squished.
squealing. Yeah.
It sounds like
Satan, stop! And he's just out there, laughing his ass off, sitting on his throne or whatever Satan does. I don't know. While he's just sticking people with his pitchfork and
goddamn,
judging them.
goddamn Satan, always judging people's assholes. Stop looking at my asshole, Satan.
Satan, yeah, Satan.
Yeah,
Yeah, you son of a
yeah.
bitch.
So something I did this weekend, thanks for
Mm.
asking.
Oh
Thanks
yeah,
for
yeah.
asking what I
Okay.
did this
right,
weekend.
right. Sorry.
No, I just wanted to bring it up. I went to the coast. I went to Newport and visited with my mom and my aunt, and we took a drive up to Cannon Beach, and I took some photos, but I haven't had a chance to edit them and put them out yet. So
I was gonna say I haven't seen any. I haven't seen any.
I,
That would explain it.
I took probably 1,000 photos, and then I got home last night and pretty much just like kind of chilled out, ate some food, and then played Dark Souls for like 4 hours. And so I haven't had a chance to edit them, but they will be coming soon. I'm gonna do that after this. I'm gonna edit uh, probably a bunch of them. Got some. There was a seal on a little rock, and there was a seagull,
How was
and
the weather over there? Because this is
there's
like the time of year where it's like
crazy good.
volatile. Yeah.
No, no, it was 83 degrees. It felt like I was
Whoa.
in fucking Southern California. It was super weird. It was like I was
Yeah.
expecting like 60s, 70s, like kind of
Hmm.
nice. It was supposed to be nice, but it was like sunburns and super warm everywhere. Like even like at the coast, it was like 80 degrees. Pretty much all 3 days I was there.
Damn.
And it's like May or
Well, yeah, I was
April.
gonna
It's
say
not even
because
May.
this time of year, the weather's either nice like that or it's a total shit rainstorm and
Yeah,
freezing cold.
it's
It's so
unpredictable typically.
unpredictable. Yeah.
Yeah, but I picked a good weekend to drive and to be down there and
Nice.
just checked out some different places along the coast and did good food and chatted and
Do you have like restaurants that you prefer to go to? Like Vanessa and I are super fond of Moe's. Like when we go to the Oregon coast,
we were gonna go to
eat
Moe's,
at
but they
Moe's
were
like constantly. They're
yeah.
always busy, but it like.
Well, there were billions of people at the beach, so all
Hmm.
up and down. We couldn't find anywhere to go into. We couldn't get any restaurants. Even this little deli we went to was like packed. You had to wait outside for your food.
It's almost
And
like
then
we're
like
still not
no
in a
parking.
pandemic.
Yeah, no, nobody cared.
Yeah.
And I on the coast, it's like they're at like high warning levels of new cases and stuff.
Yeah, there's a whole
Even
bunch of counties
yeah,
in Oregon that are like
yeah,
just going right back up to the red status.
yeah.
I think it was either today or yesterday they recorded the single highest day for new infections, like since this pandemic started. So it's actually way worse right now because like
Well,
everybody's just sick of it. They're just out doing their shit.
yeah. I think there's what you have to look at is not necessarily new cases, but deaths.
Yeah,
And if the death rate is staying around the same, then there isn't really much of a change. But if the prevalency goes up, but the death rate goes down, then that would be a sign that the vaccines are working. In that, if you get vaccinated, you're less likely to have as severe of symptoms, which means you're more likely to survive. So it's really, I don't know. To me, it's like at some point, either we accept that we're mostly gonna just have a lot of COVID and people are gonna have to get vaccinated to try to just allow people to go be around, or else we have to do another lockdown or something. Like I don't like it's like at some point everyone's just gonna go outside and they're gonna go back to their jobs and they gotta like it just means the risks of getting it are going to go up. And,
Yeah, I don't think
you
that they'll
know,
do. I don't think they'll do another lockdown because I think
I
that
don't either.
just people would lose their fucking minds if they lock this
Yeah.
down again. I feel like what their hope is that more and more people are just going to continue to get vaccinated, and it'll
Well, they
just
will.
slowly, yeah,
Yeah.
it'll just slowly kind of work itself out. But
Yeah. Well, and at some point, maybe we all just end up having a, COVID once, or a vaccine, and, the rate is at 100%, and we all just, get it, like we get the fucking chicken pox or something. Like everybody just
mhm.
gets it once when they're a kid, and then they're done with it.
Yeah, well, they can do
I don't know.
COVID parties for kids instead of the chicken pox, where it's like, oh, I heard that Sally down the street's got COVID. We need to get Ricky over there to stay the
Yeah,
night so
get
he can
him,
get
get
COVID.
him, get
Get
him
his
over it.
COVID.
Get a
Yeah.
free vaccination through sheer um um what is it called? Uh
Just herd immunity.
yeah, just like forced herd immunity, or just from proximity, just from getting it.
Yeah, Vanessa gets her second dose on Sunday, and
Yeah.
so then we're fucking. I'm done. I'm done with this shit.
Yeah. I was talking to a person at work today, and he was like he didn't want to wear a mask, and where I work, your customers are required to wear a mask. And I was helping him for a while without giving him a hard time about it. And then right before we were done, he's going to head up to the front. I was like, you should probably put on your mask. It's required, especially since you're heading up toward the front. There's more people up there, and that's where the cashier is.
Mhm.
And he was like, "Well, I've been vaccinated, so blah blah." And I was like, "Well, the vaccination has nothing to do with other people.
Yeah,
Like
it's not
you've
gonna.
been
It
vaccinated,
protects you.
yeah.
That's
So
it.
you should be okay, like fine. But you could be carrying it, and then a lot of my employees are not vaccinated because they're not. It wasn't available until more recently, and so it was just interesting because like we talked about before, like the vaccination is it doesn't it doesn't it's not like Superman comes down and saves you from COVID-19 if it shows up.
Yeah,
Just
since I have been vaccinated, I just don't worry as much
sure.
if I'm in contact with somebody who is not masked. I'm just like, well, I mean, I can't fucking
Yeah.
get sick. So if you want to walk around without a mask on, that's your ball game. Because I, work in a clinic for behavioral health, and some of our clients are already heightened and agitated when they come in to see
Yeah. You
us,
don't
and
want to
then
give them extra stress.
yeah, and so for a while, with the mask, we're like the mask mandate. They were all really resistant to in the beginning, and then people got used to it. But now we're like heading out that other side of it, where people are starting to get irritated about masks again because they're just sick of wearing them and all this stuff.
Yeah.
So if I end up having somebody come in and I'm the only one up, like that they're going to be conversing with, and they don't have a mask on or they lower it or something to talk to me, I'm like, I don't give a
Yeah.
fuck, whatever. I'm fucking vaccinated, so talk away, bro.
Talk away, bro. Keep on talking. I'm not listening anyway.
Yeah, I don't care. What do you have to say? There's
Yeah.
nothing you can probably tell me that I don't already know.
Come on. I'm looking at your chart right here. I know everything about you.
Exactly. Yeah, I just like I'm learning everything I need.
It says
Click of a
compulsive
button.
liar. It says compulsive liar right here. I'm not paying attention.
Speaking of compulsive liars, let's get to our topic, right, for the week.
Yeah.
Because the police are basically liars professionally,
oh my
right?
goodness. Oh, I
Let's
don't
go.
know. Is that your position?
No, I was just like, trying to think of a
Uh,
segue to get the ball rolling here.
yeah,
I
right.
like it because you title these episodes right based off what we talked about,
Mhm.
but then sometimes we spend the first like 30 minutes just talking about nothing, and
Yep.
then before we
Well, that's
so-
the and more. That's the
Oh, okay,
and
I
more
got
at
you.
the end is and more is like a bunch of other bullshit.
I just feel like people are like, oh, they're going to be talking about defunding the police and like what their idea of that is in this episode. That's cool. And then they listen to it, and then
Yeah.
I get to see people skipping ahead. They're like, all right, they're talking about
Did they
video
ever get to talking
games.
that? Yeah.
Somebody went to the fucking coast. They're talking about the weather.
This
What
isn't
are
yeah,
we?
this isn't a formal fucking lecture series. This is two dudes chatting, and we're not going to just start with the dramatic
Right.
topics.
Have you ever been outside and saw a police officer in a uniform drive up? How did you feel? It's like this really
gosh.
intense music playing in the background as
Bum, bum,
the episode starts.
bum 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 bum.
But anyway,
Bum,
this was
bum,
the
bum, bum,
topic
bum, bum.
that I picked. No, keep it going. Is the topic that I picked,
Yeah, you
which I
did.
think we were tentatively going to try to talk about it last episode, but usually when we go with, we only have time for one topic because we just talk too much.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Um, yeah. And the only reason why I thought about talking about defunding the police is just because the Derek Chauvin trial is wrapping up. Actually, I think right
Is
now, I
it?
think they're about to deliver the verdict.
Hmm.
And that's put the topic back out kind of in the public consciousness as far as defunding the police, because that was when George Floyd was murdered. That's what really kind of started a lot of the riots and that conversation about defunding the police. And then I swear to God, like every week you see another news article about the police shooting somebody that did not need to be shot. And so it's, it's just, it's always, it's going to be this topic, I think, that just sticks around for probably ever, just like gun violence in general in this country with the mass shootings that happen constantly. It's like just always going to be a topic up for debate. But anyway, I just thought it would be interesting for us to talk about the concept of defunding the police and like maybe how we like what we would how would we would think if that would work, or maybe if you were in charge of like making that decision, what would you want to do instead? Because I feel like when you first hear the idea of defunding the police, and I think it's the verbiage they use by just saying defunding instead of like paring down the police budget, which isn't as catchy of a newsline article as defunding the police. But when you say defunding the police, it makes it sound like we're going to strip them of all their money and like disband the police force across the country, which is not an exciting thought for a lot of people because we do have crime. And so you need something there to kind of shield people, your everyday citizens. It's not the Wild West, unless we want, I mean, we could go that route if we want. Let's get rid of the police and just hire bounty hunters for everything. Um, so I guess just starting off, what do you like when you hear that defunding the police? What is that? What do you think about? Like, do you have a
Well, why don't we
gut
just
feeling
go?
about
Why
it,
don't
or?
why don't we go to the actual like kind of definition of what most people are talking about, which is, um, and this has already been implemented in a lot of major cities, which is the budget for the police departments have been cut by millions and millions of dollars. I think Portland's, as of 2021, was cut by about $15 million. They were hoping for more than that, and then but they got the budget cut by $15 million. And then I heard I was reading an article where the Portland mayor was um, requesting like $13 million back because of a uptick in homicides. That was just an article I read while I was looking at this. So I guess the real like it's not, there's no possibility that the police are going to go away 100%. I think that would be weird. But I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to use the funds toward other programs because it's still a government fund, it's still a government money. They're not just going to give it back to the taxpayers. That doesn't tip. I mean, I guess they
Mhm.
gave some money back with the stimulus, but not for the same purposes. um, so different municipalities have their councils will make decisions about the budgets, and then they try to use the money that they took from the police specifically like for hiring police officers, paying their wages, and they're using the money toward other programs like some of the cities are using it for housing for homeless people, for addiction things like that, like treating addiction, and for food banks, things like that. I think it's interesting that I just personally, after reading through the articles, what I found is that essentially there's almost no science to anything that's happening right now with this whole concept.
Well, I think it's because
Um,
it's such a sudden shift.
well, and
Like,
that's, they need to do more research,
mhm.
and this is an experiment that some cities are testing out, and they're going to find out what happens. So really, like, so when you look at the articles, it's essentially just this bipolar state of opinions. You have like you look at Fox News, you look at um there was another one, National Review, I think is what it was, and they're just like, oh, the deadly consequences of defunding the police, or all these, what these are the actual. Actually, I looked at one that was just like from like a police advocacy group, and it was just talking about these potential negative issues, and blah blah blah. And then you look at the other side, and it's like I forget exactly the different outlets, but the like I think it was the Guardian. I read one article, and it was just like just the opposite. It's just like um, the police are using fear mongering to make it seem like defunding the police is bad, and here's all the reasons why the police suck, and blah blah blah. So it's just this really like uh, polarized topic that really people don't have a whole ton um, of statistical data behind. Like you just like there's like, how do we know that the police had a good budget to start with? How do we know that the police are effective? How do we know that giving them more money isn't more effective? How do we know that taking money away and giving it to a community organization is more effective? We just don't know. And so it's just people having opinions about police in general, and police corruption and violence. And
Well, a lot
then
of it's pretty like I feel like a lot of it's like like politically based. Like I think
yeah,
more
it is.
conservative people are for police, whereas the more liberal side
Yeah,
of things are more interested in funding other programs. But I feel like when you look at the two sides of the arguments, I think it's a case of all sides are true. Like if you defund the police, you're going to have an uptick in crime. But if you're funding other programs, then you're going to be helping those people and those populations more. It's like, I think it's a case of just not having enough resources to go around completely. Because if you take from
obviously.
one to help
Yeah,
the other, then it's going to have a
yeah,
consequence. And so, like when I was reading articles about it, it's like you kind of see where both sides are coming from because they're both right. I mean, realistic. Ooh, a nice Taco Bell cup. Do you have some Taco Bell today?
it was from yesterday.
Oh, okay.
It's some Sierra
Some
Mist leftover.
oh, nice, nice flat Sierra Mist from yesterday.
It's super flat.
Um, but I like the idea. What sucks really is that we can't find a way to fund these other programs without seemingly pulling money out of the police budget. I mean, because I guess that would require probably taxes to go up even more. And that's like the bane of just about everybody's existence is the moment you have to introduce something that's going to raise taxes, people fucking shy away from it right away.
Yeah.
Understandably so. I mean, fucking government already takes thousands and thousands of dollars from most of us every year as it is. But we have like the Cahoots program in our area. I don't know if Portland does. Um, but it's they work kind of through the police department. Like you call the police department to have Cahoots go somewhere, which they're kind of like they're crisis counselors that basically work. They just drive around to different places where they're called to help settle not usually disputes, but if somebody's having like a mental crisis at home, instead of
Hmm.
calling the police and getting the police there, like if they're being threatening or potentially going to harm themselves, you call Cahoots, and they bring crisis counselors to the place to like talk to the person and help de-escalate the situation. And then they can escort them over to the hospital to be admitted into like a behavioral health unit if they are at that elevated level,
Hmm.
or if they just need to go to the emergency department to just sort of check in and maybe wind down. And so it's a great alternative to calling cops over, and they're you have these armed officers who show up and they're going to take a situation, most likely take a situation where somebody's already kind of elevated and maybe threatening themselves or others, and it's probably going to make it worse because now you have armed men outside your door knocking on it. And like I said, that typically doesn't de-escalate a situation with somebody who's kind of already on the edge. So I know a lot of arguments that like the one side has is like, let's pull money from the police budget to fund these other programs like Cahoots so that we can have more versatile tools at our disposal to help deal with these different situations. But at the same time, it's like you need police. If somebody's robbing a bank with a gun, who are you going to call? You know what I mean? You can't have a crisis counselor go, hey, guys, what? why are you robbing the bank? Do you need
Yeah.
money? Like, what's going
Yeah. I think
on?
they, yeah.
Yeah.
How was your childhood? Yeah, I think that I think the part of the problem is that essentially if the police are doing a really good job, you really don't see them very often.
Hmm.
And so there's so many instances where police are doing very difficult tasks, and they're doing things that are part of the justice system. Like, they are not on their own. They don't just do whatever they want. I mean, they're independent human beings, but like, they are backed by an entire system of laws, and their job is to go out and um, uh, enforce laws. And um, that's a difficult task because of the force that's involved, and the different types of, evidence that you get on things. You don't always know what's going on. You don't always know who's right. And you're supposed to presume people are innocent, but at the same time, like, they just broke a law, or you think they did. So it's um it's a really messy prospect to be in a society where you have laws and we have rules, and you kind of want people to obey the rules. And generally speaking, um in first world countries, the amount of just wanton violence is much lower than it's ever been, and people are safer than they've ever been. And so some amount of that type of force is working to our benefit. But then you see these not good circumstances, these circumstances where people make mistakes, and we're like, what, they can't, they gotta fucking, you know pay for that mistake. And they do need to pay for those mistakes, and they've got to be held accountable. So accountability is kind of like half of the equation when it comes to police, just like it's kind of the equation when it comes to politics in general, and government agencies and laws, and all that. Accountability is an important part. And I think part of the issue is that a lot of police actions have the kind of benefit of the doubt. They kind of go with the police in most situations. And because there's not always evidence to the contrary, they take the policeman's word. And now that we have all this videotape footage, I think it's hopefully going to make the accountability aspect um, easier to understand and adjudicate, and to figure out, who's a bad cop. Follow them around, and videotape them and find out what they're doing, and
Well, a lot of them have those
get rid
body
of them.
cams and stuff now too, which I
Yeah,
think is a great addition. Because I feel like it
to
does hold them more
evidence.
accountable, and I think it makes I hopefully it makes them think more about what they're doing in the
I
moment, because
should.
they know that they're sort of being like, this is whatever they do is evidence that can be used against
Yeah,
them if they do something out of line.
yeah,
But I think that another way, instead of necessarily defunding the police, is using some of their funding to improve like their training and things like that.
yeah. That's what a
Because
lot of people want.
yeah, it's like there's so much more training that they could do and exercises they could do to help prepare them for different circumstances that they're going to be in.
Yeah,
And a lot of the cries for defunding the police too is uh, not necessarily politically motivated, but also racially motivated, because there are a lot of black people who are being killed by the police. I mean, just this week there was a 13-year-old boy. I don't remember his name, but and the body cam footage from the police leaked. But at first, the police were saying that he was armed, and the officer who shot him because he had a gun in his hand. Well, then when you go back and review the body cam footage, the kid did have a gun. Like the cops were called because him and some adult man were shooting the gun off, or I don't know if it was like a target practice thing or something, but they were discharging the firearm in a neighborhood, and the police were called, and then they took off running. Well, they caught the older guy, but the 13-year-old kid kept running, and the body cam footage, you could see him toss the gun like
oh yeah,
off to the side in an alleyway. And then the police were chasing him, and then he stopped at this fence and put his hands up and like slowly turned around. And as he's turned around, the cop shot him in the chest.
hmm.
And
Yeah,
so, and so it was kind of like and it wasn't a good look for the police, because they killed a fucking 13-year-old kid, but also because then they basically caught the cops lying, saying that the kid had a gun in his hand when the cop shot him. It's like, no, he didn't. Like, there's
yeah,
fucking video proof that he did not have anything in his hands. Um, And so it's like you see those kind of stories, and then it just keeps really stoking the fire because
Yeah.
I hear stories all the time from Black families where it's like they have to teach their kids that the police aren't there to protect them, that because they're probably more likely to be shot by a cop than they are to be saved by one in most circumstances. And so that's like the other side of it too, is that a lot of this stems from the racial side of things, because it seems like statistically, if you're a Black person, there's just this higher probability that something's going to happen to you, usually fatal, when the police are involved. And it can be over things that are really minuscule to have, like, I mean, in this case, there could maybe be some arguments made because there was a firearm involved, but sometimes it's just somebody who had a cell phone in their hand and got shot, or stopping to get a drink somewhere and somehow they get involved. It's just it's a fucking mess. And I think part of it is because um, I imagine the police are also scared on a certain level. Like when you do a traffic stop, it could be the last traffic stop you ever do. You don't know, like when you walk up to that window, you don't know what that person is going to do when they roll that window down. If they roll the window down, I mean, they could just. I mean, how many times have we seen footage from a police officer's like dash cam where they do a police stop and then they walk up and the fucking window rolls down and the cops get shot right there on the side of the road. So it's got to be tough for them too. Like I couldn't imagine having that job because I feel like a lot of these incidents happen not only because of poor training, but also because they're afraid. So it's like you're more likely to react in a negative way if you feel like your life's in danger. Um, and a lot of things that they're doing are probably spur of the moment. If you're chasing after somebody who has a firearm, and then they stop and turn around, like your adrenaline's probably going so hard, you probably almost reflexively shoot them because you don't want to take the chance of them turning around and shooting you, before you have the time to react. And so, in a way, I guess it almost sounds like you making excuses for the police officers when they're making mistakes, which I guess in some ways it is. But I think it's also just the reality of the situations that they find themselves
But
in.
but if that kid had a gun in his waistband and he turns around fast,
Mm-hmm.
whether his hands are up or not, they were just chasing him. He had a gun, and if he had the gun in his waistband and he had turned around really quickly and the guy shot him, does that make it different? Does the cop have to be like in mortal danger before he shoots? Does he just have to believe he's in mortal danger? It's a very difficult thing to ask
Mm-hmm.
somebody to to perfectly identify threats when their adrenaline is coursing through their veins and they literally, it's either life or death. And at the same time, the training probably, who knows what's going on visibly, but maybe they're training, maybe they haven't been in that many of those types of situations. They don't know how to get cover. They don't know how to um they maybe they didn't notice that the kid had dropped the gun. The the problem is that those situations are going to happen, and the police on the whole, we can talk about individual anecdotal evidence where they make mistakes, but
Oh
they
yeah.
don't make mistakes most of the time. Most of the time they have a traffic stop and it goes normally. Most of the time they do a drug bust and it happens normally. We don't hear about the thousands and thousands of police actions that occur and are to the book and generally work out decently. And so we can
It's like the loud
what's
minority.
what's the all so what's the alternative is when you get a call, you hear gunshots and you see some people shooting at each other or shooting their gun in the air outside your house. You call the police, and what's the alternative for the police? They don't go figure it out. They don't go arrest them for illegal discharging of firearms. Either they go and they deal with really really dangerous un un imperfect situations. The hope is just that they're experienced, that they're trained, that they don't want to kill people, and that they make the right decisions. But it's a very tough situation, especially in America, where there are millions and millions of guns, and people have easy access to guns. So that puts the cops in a different position than they would in a different country where, like in England, the cops, a lot of the standard beat cops don't have guns, and they have special units for guns. Whereas every cop in America, might be dealing with an old lady on one situation with, she just is belligerent at a fucking Starbucks. And then, they turn around and the next issue is a gang, with AK-47s.
Yeah.
And we're asking them to do both. We're asking them to both deal with the mundane and the almost militant. Wouldn't, the problem is I'm not trying to like defend anybody. Like, that's not my job. That's what the justice system
Mhm.
is for. It's not our job to create courts of public um shame and things like that when we just don't have the evidence. That's what the lawyers are for. That's what the problem is. We don't necessarily trust that system when it comes to cops because they get the benefit of the doubt. And I don't know
And
if
I
they
think there's the
shouldn't get
idea of
that, but
like corruption and collusion, probably, it's
yeah,
like
there
their cops
probably
are probably going to
is.
try to protect their own. Yeah.
Well, and they're gonna fabricate a witness here or there. And so, but that's always been an issue. I mean, you can imagine cops 50 years ago, before they just beat the fuck out of somebody and throw them in a ditch.
Yep.
That I guarantee that doesn't happen nearly as much. There's a lot more accountability now, but there's still humans, and they still are making interesting decisions. They're also men, and they're also people who have a propensity toward a kind of
They have
us
a
them
personality.
situation.
Well, and there's
Yeah,
like a
they have to.
personality type.
Well,
Like
that's what I'm
there's
saying. You have to be willing to try to engage in law um enforcement. Like, that is your thought process. Is you're like, there's bad guys and there's good guys, and I'm going to go be a good guy. And that is a muddy water. That's not so straightforward a lot of the times.
well, and I think a lot of people go like with the personality types. I think to be a police officer usually means you're probably somebody who likes having power, because I mean, when you're a police officer, you literally hold complete power over civilians. Like you could stop anybody
Well,
in
not
a car for
complete.
any reason.
It's
You know
not
what I mean?
complete power, but I know what you're saying.
But it's like you hold
We
so much
have
more
rights.
authority over them than,
Well,
if they were just a normal fucking everyday
obviously, yeah.
person. So I think it's like you have to the the fault with law enforcement is that it's done by human beings, which we are all faulty by design, and we make, spur of the moment bad decisions sometimes. And so I feel like the only way you could have like a perfect law enforcement is you'd have to like fucking RoboCop that shit, where you have somebody, you have like a computer AI or something that has no emotions and is literally just analyzing a threat factually, and then eliminating or disposing of the
Yeah.
threat, in like a humane,
I don't
non-lethal
know if
manner.
any
I
I
don't
don't know
know.
if I don't know if anything in RoboCop is humane at all.
No, no, I just mean,
Um
but like the idea behind RoboCop
well,
was that he could just
you're talking
scan and
about
analyze
some
things, and he
type of
had no emotion.
perfection, but that's
Yeah,
also like Judge Dredd, like where like you simplify the process by having the guy also be the judge. But
but in those movies, they're really good at their job until the human factor comes back in, and then that's when they start getting awful. Like
but
RoboCop,
yeah,
his humanity starts to break through, and then creates the faulty.
it's also the human factor that, like, people rob and steal and
Mhm.
murder and rape and all that stuff. And unless you're interested in your own uh private law enforcement, that you're going to hire or have, help you when you need it, or you're going to carry a gun or something, um you know the centralized use of force, it I don't know, it's just an outcropping of public needs. Like, the government, everybody essentially accepts that the government is there to do certain things, and part of that
Mhm.
is to protect its citizens from other citizens, and to allow for peaceful commerce, and you know that kind of stuff. And so, it's an interesting thing. I think it's another one of those things where it's probably better than it's ever been, but it could be better. And we
Mhm.
focus on the negative stuff, and the media focuses entirely on negative stuff.
Well, that's because that's what gets the clicks. That's what gets the
Yeah, that's
views.
what,
I mean,
well,
that's why
that's
the
what
news is
causes the
always depressing.
drama, gets you riled up, makes you want to talk to your friends about how shitty this is and how shitty that is. And you can pick a side. It's easy to do that, but um you know, you're not a cop, I'm not a cop, and I'm also not a black person trying
Hmm.
to not get shot. So
Yeah.
there's perspectives that, are hard to relate to. And and unless we're going to go strictly objective, like look at statistics, odds, and stuff like that, which we don't, humans are not great at using uh, accurately, even if we have the information. We're just going to have our own prejudices and perspectives and biases.
Yeah.
And in saying it's all or nothing, or always this way or always that way, is not accurate in almost any situation. Um, so, and I liked your point about like if we have these other community programs like helping, homeless people and stuff, why can't that just be a part of what the city does on its own merit, and track that to see if that has a positive effect on crime? And even if it doesn't, you have a reason to do it because it's helping people. It's a
Yeah.
kind of socialistic kind of welfare system. I'm not necessarily advocating that, but like that's its own thing to me. Taking money away from the police is just a different concept. It's, maybe they don't need that much money. I don't, how do we know that the police department is using their funds effectively? How do we know that the wages that they're getting paid, maybe they're not getting paid enough, and maybe we don't educate them enough, and maybe we don't need as many of them. Maybe we need less but they're more qualified, or
Yeah.
maybe we need more and they're all more qualified. I know that the like hand-to-hand stuff like jujitsu and stuff is not taught enough, so the officers don't know how to do things other than shoot their guns. And the non-lethal stuff is only minimally effective, so a lot of them don't go to it because it doesn't always work. Like tasers and mace are not 100% effective.
Well, and
um,
there's still mistakes made there because that happened this week too, where a female police officer was doing a traffic
yeah, I
stop,
saw that one, and she
and then
shot
she
him.
she
She
like
said,
literally
I
she was
thought he
like
hit.
yelling, yeah, she
It's
was
just
yelling
makes everybody look
taser.
stupid as fuck.
Yeah, she was like even
Yeah,
shouting taser in the
I
video,
know, I
but she
saw
pulled
that.
her gun.
I watched
And
that.
so, and people are making fun of her, and I'm like, that's just one of honestly, is probably a fucking spur of the moment, adrenaline infused bad
Well,
decision where she probably was just reaching,
yeah,
thought she and just
she
was
went to her
grabbing something.
training.
Yeah,
She probably trains more with the gun because that's a harder skill to learn. And so when it came down to it, she went to the thing she trained to do, which was to grab her gun. And she should have taken the extra second to make sure she had a taser in her hand. But
and it's easy to
that's
watch
a
those
tough ass
videos.
situation.
Well, and it's easy to watch the videos as an outsider, and then be like, what a dumb bitch. She didn't grab the right thing. It's like, well, you weren't there in her position trying to wrestle
Yeah.
with this person, perpetrator,
Yeah.
whatever, and while also trying to get
Yeah.
something to help subdue him. And so it's always easier to look from the
Yeah.
outside and judge the events that are happening. And
Yeah.
so,
Well, and in that situation, he was in a car, and a car is technically a deadly weapon at a
mhm,
certain point. And because he went to drive off, at some point, police officers, depending on the situation, can use deadly force when the person is in a car. I don't think it was in that case, but
well,
it
no,
was like about
she's
to
being
be there.
charged for
Yeah.
second degree manslaughter. So
Yeah.
she's definitely
Well, she
not
fucked up.
getting off. Yeah.
Um, and
Imagine the stress of that job too, knowing
I
that like
can't. I
any
can't imagine it.
day, like in her position, she went to work that day, and
Yeah. She just didn't know.
now she's looking at a 10-year
Facing
prison sentence
charges. Yeah.
because she got into an altercation and made a bad decision.
Yeah.
And
Well,
that bad decision also results, it
in
has
a
a
death.
victim.
Yeah,
Like that guy
exactly.
is
It's
dead now. He
terrible.
doesn't get to
Yeah.
live his life. His family is
Yeah.
at a loss. It's like it's anytime one of these situations happens with a police officer, it's like literally everybody loses because that cop's life is
Well,
ruined. They murdered somebody, that
yeah.
ruins that
But
person's life and everybody around them. And
like I said, we don't see the thousands and thousands of situations
mhm,
that go well, and that are, or I mean, maybe they don't go well for the fucking criminal, but if we're all so interested, like either you think no one's a criminal or you think some people are criminals. Like to me, if you're a criminal and you are getting caught by the police and you resist them and they beat you up to get you into their car, I don't know an alternative that makes sense other than uh like a knockout gas that works 100% of the time. Like you can just shoot them with it, it'll knock them out immediately, and they can just take you to prison. And if you're innocent, then you can sue them, or you just, like you're fine, it doesn't hurt you or whatever. Like, because the officer has to physically take you somewhere, and they can't back down or like negotiate with you. Like once a police officer says you're under arrest, that's it. They're not allowed to like change their mind.
Hmm.
um it's just a messy concept. Like people don't want to get arrested, and um if you have been, you committed a crime, especially a violent crime, you might decide you're going to fucking fight. They shouldn't, but
Well, I
um
mean, if you know you're gonna get convicted of a, especially if you killed somebody, it's like, what do you have left to lose? You might as well try to fight.
especially, and that's a
I
lot of
mean,
times what it is
mhm.
they have the gun on them that you didn't know about. And that, I've watched videos on both sides. There's lots of videos out there of just police officers doing their job. They talk to somebody for fucking an hour and a half, and then eventually the person lunges at them with a knife and they shoot them.
Mhm.
And we can all talk about what would be ideal, but I'm you know you fucking lunged at a person with a gun who's totally justified in shooting you,
Mhm.
and that sucks in general. But those are also very rare cases too. um it it's tough, and it's definitely, the more evidence we have to catch bad cops, the better. you know um Especially if statistically they're targeting certain groups, then somebody needs to be paying attention. And I would say it's the government. They need to have teams who are looking into um the implementation of their tactics.
So, speaking of statistics, I actually
You must
just
have just been
found,
looking at something else.
yeah, well, because we keep talking about statistics, and I was like, I should
Yeah,
probably just try to find some.
yeah.
So, just, and this is just basic. This is just so number of people shot to death by the police in the United States from 2017 to 2021, and they actually divided down by race.
Hmm.
So just let's just look at 2020 because it's the most recent. They actually have some 2021 stats for so far this year. So in 2020, 457 white people were murdered by the police, shot by the police. Murder is probably a little harsh because we don't know the circumstances of each death. It might have been self-defense in some cases. Um, 241 black people were killed. So almost twice as many white people were killed by the police last year than black people.
Hmm.
169 Hispanic, 28 other, and then 126 are unknown. So, I mean, just looking at the three primary white, black, Hispanic, yeah, 500 or 457 white, 241 black,
Yeah.
169 Hispanic. And then
So
so
it's
far in
like 1,000
2021,
people.
yeah, and which is a lot of people, but for a
It's
whole
not a
year,
lot of people.
yeah. Um,
It's not really a lot of people.
no, not considering there's like 300 plus million or something that live in the US.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then so far in 2021, 50 white people have been shot to death by the police, 30 black people, and 20 Hispanic.
Yeah.
So exactly 100 people within those three demographics have been killed so far this year. It's only April, so the year's still young. They have some time
Yeah.
to get the numbers up. Um, See, that's an interesting topic because in terms of just like the difference between white and black deaths, every single year from 2017 to 2021, it's been almost twice as many white people have been killed by the police,
Sure.
which is probably more. I wonder, like, if you wanted to go deeper as far as like per capita, because there's obviously more white people generally in our population in the US than there are black people. So I'm curious, like, what the per capita percentage would be. Like, if it's still, it's probably maybe a higher or break even percentage of black people versus white people if you were just looking at percentage of populations, but or maybe even more for black people.
No, it's way higher because the population of black people in America is super low.
Yeah.
It's only like last time I looked, it was like 13% or something like that.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So
So in that case, the
the
percentage
proportions
is
are
pretty high.
that's why people are upset, is because
Mhm.
the proportions are off. Um, And then if you look at crime statistics, the proportions are there as well. More Black people are incarcerated and convicted of things than more of a percent of that population.
Yeah.
But the white population is like 80% of the fucking US. So there's tons and tons of white people, just a lot of them, just
Too
quite a
many. There's
lot.
really too many of us
So
milk toast
yeah,
motherfuckers.
and it's a part of it is a chicken and the egg type situation. Um, are Black people being shot because they're Black, or is it because a lot of gangs are Black?
Yeah.
So it's like I
It's
don't
tricky
I'm
when you
not
start
trying to
talking
make that
about race.
statistic,
Yeah.
but and part of the reason that people end up doing crime is because of poverty, and part of poverty
Yeah.
is historical inequities. So it's not like it's yeah,
You
it's a tough it's a
what you're
tough
getting
thing to
into
situate.
now.
Like are white people, I think the drug, if we got rid of drugs, because Oregon legalized these drugs, made it just way more um uh way less of an issue, right? If the drug war had not occurred from the 80s until now, for the last 40 years, I don't even know what these statistics would look like, because half the time the cops are getting people on drug charges, and half
Mhm.
the time the gangs and uh, impoverished people are selling drugs because they can make money, and they can make enough money to live. And if drugs weren't made illegal and that black market didn't exist, then who knows what our country would look like as far as statistics go. Maybe people could start legitimate businesses, or there'd be people, it just, if you didn't get in trouble for the drugs, there'd be almost no reason to sell them, because they wouldn't be worth anything. You know what I mean? The reason that they're so expensive is because of the massive amount of risk involved. So you have to
Yeah.
charge,
Well,
marijuana, when it
also
was
they're not
legal,
just
was
on a
super
store
expensive.
shelf, so you gotta find
Well, and
somebody.
and some of it would become legal through medicinal, things like methamphetamine, even if it was not, um, even if it's legal, would never be distributed legally. So then maybe there'd still be some drugs, some drug wars related to that. But if you could get, addiction with methadone or something like that, um, then it's just less likely you'd have people who are buying meth, because they'd be just getting meth through the government, and the government would be the meth dealer. I don't know how that would work.
Well, and I think part of what you were talking about too is like a lot of black populations do exist in like more poverty impoverished areas, which is more deep seated in our history or our country's
Yeah.
very racist ass history. I mean, you're talking about a population of people who started off as slaves and then had to deal with segregation and are still trying to fucking claw their way up to equality. And so I think when you look at it from that lens, I mean, that's a big part of it too, is just the
Sure.
history of this country and how
Yeah.
it was built.
So, you get rid of the drug war, and you just, you just don't get to arrest people for doing drugs. And so that just changes everything. And I think that would cut a lot of the power away from gangs and from organized crime and things like that. And even just, I don't know, maybe people would still be stealing and stuff, but um, there's different ways to look at crime and different ways to look at justice. And
People will always be stealing shit because, like you said, I mean, a lot of times people are stealing shit because they can't. If everybody had enough money to just buy the things that they needed or at least most of the things they wanted, you wouldn't have people stealing shit. Because I mean, people wouldn't be willing to put the risk in if they could just buy the thing that they needed. The problem is that
yeah,
people are fucking poor and then they really want something, and so they decide that the risk is worth it. Because the number one reason why people steal things, Joe, is because they don't think they're going to get caught. That's like retail management shit, loss and
well,
prevention
yeah,
101.
yeah, theft is a very odd characteristic, because I think a lot of people definitely steal because they don't have the money to afford things, and so
Some
they
people
steal
probably
stuff. But
just,
there's a difference between petty theft and grand larceny and car theft, and some people make tons of money probably stealing, and they don't need to do it. I'm not 100% on board with the idea that people are rational creatures that just
Oh no, not at
only
all.
do things because of sheer survival instincts and necessity. I think people do things for all sorts of reasons, and a lot of times it's very selfish and very dysfunctional. And so it's who knows, but
Some people are just looking for that rush,
yeah.
the
I,
adrenaline
I think
of
if anything, what you
stealing.
need to have is oversight committees in every branch of the government that are probably privately run. Like these oversight committees that actually look at budgets and look at where it's being spent and who's getting the money. And do we even need this law? Do we even need this position? Do we need to have a secretary of this fucking thing? Like, where's our money going? Who's making sure that it's not being wasted? And if we had maybe like a joint, partly private, partly public oversight committees on, like who watches the watchers. That's like what I'm trying to get at is like,
Mhm.
the government is supposed to be self policing, but where's the evidence that they do that? I don't know.
There
Or do they
isn't
just
any.
wait until they get caught and then they pretend like they're going to fix it and then they fucking don't? Or they
Mhm.
do one thing to fix one thing or something. It's a tough thing when you hand over the power and force to a group of people and you're like, no, you solve all the fucking wars and you deal with crime, and then it doesn't go perfectly.
Yeah, and then we all get pissed at them when they fuck up.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. It's being part of a big system. You have to look at, like, what's the big system, but what's the little, like, what's the actual system, like what are the circumstances I'm dealing with in my neighborhood? What are the people doing in my neighborhood? Am I getting robbed? Am I getting broken into? Do I need to move? What's the that's a lot of what people can do as well, is like, if you live in a shitty area and you can get out, maybe you should do that so that you don't become a statistic in a crime manual
Mhm.
somewhere. That seems like a kind of pithy thing to say, but um,
Well, I
you
mean,
know,
in a way, we're all responsible for ourselves. I mean,
yeah, for
you are
sure.
the keeper of your own fate.
Yeah,
And I'm not. That's not to say that everybody. I mean, there are people who don't get the same opportunities other people get. There's some people are at inherent
yeah,
advantages and disadvantages from birth. I mean, if you're born into a nice, wealthy family, then
yeah,
you already have a big advantage over a lot of other people. But I mean, at
sure.
the end of the day, it's like you are responsible for yourself.
Yeah.
And so you
Well,
got to do with
yeah,
that what you can and try to make wise decisions. And you're
yeah,
going to fuck up along the way. Obviously, we all do, but it's part of
yeah,
learning and growing. But
yeah,
you can't. That's the thing with the other side of the police thing too, is that you can't always just be waiting for people to come rescue you all the time. Like you got to take some steps to protect yourself.
well,
Um,
that's a whole nother discussion on
yeah.
self-defense and open carry and concealed carry and stuff like that.
Well, I
I
mean, not necessarily just in terms of like having a firearm, but like you were saying, like if you're able to get out of a really bad crime infested
Sure,
place, you
sure.
should do that because that's a step that you can take to help protect yourself is by not
Yeah.
remaining in an area
Or maybe
where
do
you
like
can.
a neighborhood watch, or
Mhm.
maybe help somebody in need, and maybe that'll help them from not wanting to do some crime later on.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, this is annoying. There was a person panhandling on the side of the street, and I parked, and they were right next to me at a stoplight, and I had a banana, and I was like, well, I'm probably not even going to eat this, so I wanted to hand him the banana. I was like, hey, here's a banana. Like, I'd give a banana to anybody. Like,
Mhm.
it just happened to be that I had a nice piece of fruit here, nice piece of fruit over here. And
Hey, you
he
gave
did.
that guy a
He was like, I
banana.
don't want it, and I was like offended that like a person who's asking for free handouts didn't want my banana, and he just
Oh,
doesn't like
money.
banana,
Yeah,
and it's
maybe.
definitely in what he wants is money, so he can buy whatever he wants. I don't want to
What did
disparage him
he
too
say?
much.
So you offered him the banana. What did
Yeah,
he say?
he goes, man, man, I'm good, man. And I
Okay.
go, oh, okay.
Okay.
But if
Yeah, I mean,
anything,
at the very least, just be
just
like,
be
"Hey, I
just
appreciate the offer, but I don't
no,
like
no, no, no,
bananas."
no, 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 no. When you have a sign that says, I need help you take the banana and then you throw it away if you don't want it.
It's
You don't
true.
just
Yeah.
not take the fucking banana. It's like you literally just trained this person of the public never to give you anything because I'm not going to ask again. Like I offered you something and you didn't take it. Like if you had taken it, then maybe next time I give you some money or something.
That happened to Vanessa and I because I don't like to give money. It's weird.
Yeah, a
I don't
lot of
mind
people
getting
don't.
I don't mind getting them something to help them. So there was one time Vanessa and I were out walking and we walked over to an AM PM just to get some snacks or something. And there was a guy panhandling outside the AM PM. So we went in and we were getting some food and like I got one of like those hot cheeseburgers or whatever that they have cooking. I was like, oh, let's just get this and just give that to the guy. Like probably just maybe want some food or something. And I went out and gave it to him and he was like, no, it's okay. I just need some money. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, I guess I'll just take this
Yeah.
cheeseburger home then and eat it myself.
Obviously, they're not that destitute.
Yeah,
They're
it's
not
like
starving. They're fine. I mean, they're not like doing great, but they're choosing to not eat bananas and free food. So, whatever.
yeah.
That's why people don't give them money is because they know they're going to go buy booze or fucking drugs.
Well, and
And
that's
they
why I
don't
don't
want
like
that.
yeah, that's why I don't like doing it.
Yeah.
It's like if you I don't mind giving you like a necessity, like here's a bottle of water and some food. Like,
Yeah.
you know, like something just to get you by for a little bit longer. I'm not gonna give you fucking $10 for you to hop into the AMPM and
Well, and you haven't done
buy a
anything.
40 ounce or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So
they
I
get it.
just
They get the money. Like those
no, they
folks,
do.
they make money doing that stuff. But yeah, it's interesting. You know, I've had my car stolen. I've had my car broken into a bunch of times. I've watched, you know, people stealing cars, and I've heard gunshots. But for the most part, like I'm not dealing with crime. I mean, I am at work. People, you know, petty theft. I deal with shoplifters almost every day.
Oh yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's
When I
not
worked at
worth.
a
It's not worth it.
Spencer's, man, I
Yeah.
was busting kids left and right trying to steal
Oh,
little
for
stash
sure.
jars and shit.
It's just
Yeah,
not worth
luckily
it to do much about it.
the neighborhood we live in here is it's like a quiet little farming community out
Yeah.
in Harrisburg. So it's like
Yeah.
I could probably leave my truck unlocked every night if I
Yeah.
wanted to, and I don't think anything would happen.
Don't do it.
No, I wouldn't. I've been really fortunate. I've luckily, like knock on wood, I've never had anybody break into any of my vehicles or steal
Yeah.
them or anything. I've been really lucky. I've
Yeah.
I had roommates who've had their cars broken into and stuff, but
Yeah.
I also don't leave anything in my truck. Like you could look in the window and just see there's fucking nothing in there.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I
and
just don't leave anything in
half
there.
the time they're just if it's unlocked, they'll just go in and grab stuff. And
Mhm.
half the time they're trying to steal the car because they want to
Yeah.
like get somewhere. I had somebody steal my car, and all they did was drive it up to Vancouver from Eugene, and they just dumped it in a parking lot or like a residential area, and then it ended up in an impound, and there was nothing wrong with it, and they like left like their this like handkerchief, you know, white do-rag handkerchief in it. Whatever.
Did you have the cops take their forensic team to analyze that for evidence so they could
I don't think so.
CSI who took your car?
I don't think they like.
I'm just kidding.
They
They're not
can't
gonna give a shit. They're
can't
just like, yeah,
catch
here's your
that,
car
yeah.
back. It's
Yeah.
not broken. You're
Well, I
lucky.
didn't even talk to the cops. I think I got called from them saying my car was at a particular impound, and I paid for it to get out. And but you know,
Isn't that some shit where it's like your vehicle is stolen and then it gets impounded and then you have to
Well,
pay it? It's like you think they'd just be like, oh shit, yeah, we found your car. Here's it back. Sorry
well, what's
about your
the
inconvenience. You know?
what's the alternative? Like the cops didn't steal my car, and the person at the impound didn't steal my car. It's not their fault. They're doing me a service by returning my car and holding it in a secure place for a while.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not your fault. Somebody fucking stole it either.
No,
You
but
know?
that's
It's like
life, dude.
nobody's at fault.
That's life. The
Yes,
the
why can't we have
guy
a
who stole my
special
fucking car is
impound?
at fault, but he got away with it. So that's somebody taking advantage of other people and not getting in trouble. That's what we hate. No, we hate people who play the game in that way. That's, you know, people who cheat are we do not like. We
Well,
don't like cheaters.
let's defund part of the police so that they can fund their own special impound lot that's
So that I
specifically
don't
for
have to
people's
pay.
stolen vehicles, so that they pay to get it out of the real impound to put it in their special impound to get it to
Yeah.
you.
I
for
think
free.
that instead of like taxing the
Hmm?
rich, let's just tax the criminals more. Let's get their money.
We should this is a discussion
Yeah.
for another time, but
Yeah.
I was talking to Vanessa about this because I was like, why don't we just all pay the same fucking percentage of tax? Why doesn't it just like everybody pays
Ugh.
15%? Just
Don't be-
everybody
you can't be rational. This doesn't help.
because and I get it. It's like some people pay way more than other people, but it's like, well, now they're trying to pass a tax for wealthy people that's like way higher than the average middle class person. So it's like, why isn't it just like
Like a flat tax.
you pay 15%, just period? That's just what you owe us. That helps fund yours. I don't know. Anyway, like I said, that's a totally different
I
thing.
don't
But
know.
I'm sure there's some master degree economist that can tell me why that's a horrible idea and will fail.
Well, it's
And
just
I'm
an
basically
argument.
trying to start another communist country or some shit. I don't know.
I think it's less communistic to have a flat tax. It's more communistic for them to take more money. The
Yeah.
more taxes, the more communistic it is.
Yeah.
100 communists would want 100% of your money, and then they would redistribute it. That's what a
How they saw
communist
fit
would
to
do.
balance the record.
That's what they tried to do in real communist countries,
Yeah.
like during World War II. It was not
Well, they
good.
convinced enough people that it was a good idea. No, no, no,
I
no,
don't
no,
think
no,
they
no. We
convinced
take
anybody. They
everything.
didn't convince anybody.
Yeah,
They
that's true. Most
fucking
of them are
murdered
pretty.
millions and millions of people. You know how many people died in the fucking Soviet Union during that time? Like during World War II, it was way
World War
more
II, it
than
was like
6
World
million. It
War.
was like 25 million people died
Yeah, it
in
was.
fucking Soviet
They
Russia.
had by far the most
And
casualties.
most of them was from fucking starvation because the government didn't allocate farmland very well.
27 million.
Yeah,
Soviet Union in
that's
World War
way
II.
more than plus all the people that died in the war, plus all the dead Jews.
But so
And
of the 27 million, only 8.6 million were actually military deaths.
yeah,
So
it was
most of
just the
those deaths
people.
were civilians.
They
Yeah.
just killed their own people. It's fucking horrible. Like, don't do that.
Yeah.
And that was just power. You can call it communism, socialism, whatever. It's just fucking power. It's just people 100% in control. They'll kill anybody who doesn't like what they want. You don't do exactly what we say, and you don't, it's like Kim Jong-il or Kim Jong-un, whatever. It's just power. They're dictators, they're emperors, they're rulers, and that's how it is. That's how it's been for a lot of history. They're just still doing it.
And this is why we needed to fund the police, because they are dictators too. I'm kidding. That's not true.
The police are they are the it's the strong arm of the legislation. They do the dirty work that the fucking government doesn't want to do itself, because they're in their fucking stupid little offices writing legislation and making marijuana illegal and making it legal again, and then making it illegal, and then making it legal again. And the cops are going, I guess I'll do this now and that then. And I don't know.
Also, I didn't get into a pro football team, so I'm gonna take my anger out on everybody else as a police officer.
I don't know.
I'm just kidding.
I think justice is a hugely important thing. Morals, ethics, all very, very important. We have to understand that stuff, and we should teach more of it in school. We should teach more about, understanding each other, understanding ourselves, being critical of ourselves in the government. There's a lot we could do to make humanity more thoughtful and compassionate and interesting. But the goal is to get them to
what you're dancing
go do
around
jobs.
that you really want to come out and say is that eugenics is the future.
We
just have to breed the perfect person.
Of course. Obviously, we need to control the breeding. That's something we've tried too, but that's got to be the hardest thing, because that's like, if you thought it was hard to control marijuana when you can grow it in your closet, try controlling sperm and eggs. Those things are just in everybody. You'd have to control every person and never let them get near each other. Or just sterilize them, like they did with the poor and the infirm in America during right before World War II. That's a whole history most people don't know about.
Yeah, and then we had to baby boom that shit when all the troops came back.
We had baby boom that shit. Get all them babies so that we can get, to
replenish the fucking
social security system.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nobody's in charge, man.
No. That's
nobody knows what the fuck is
great
going
illusion.
on.
That's why it's whenever we get a new president, people think things are going to be so much better. It's like, nah. I mean, your day-to-day life is going to be the same, man. Like Trump was a douchebag. He was just a total piece of shit as a human being. Like he's the kind of person I would never even want to talk to because he's so awful. But I was like,
he wouldn't let you talk anyway.
Exactly. Ultimately, But under his presidency, I was like, I don't know, my fucking life is the same as it
Yeah,
was
what did he
before he
do?
was president.
What
I
did he
mean,
not do? I have no idea.
I apparently paid a little bit less than taxes because of some sweet tax thing that he passed, but I don't fucking know.
I've been getting roughly around the same amount of money back in my taxes for the last fucking
Exactly.
20 years. So whatever, dude. Whatever,
Yeah.
y'all.
The only thing I was grateful for when he was done is I was like, I'm just glad that he's not on Twitter. I don't want
He's
to, I
just
just don't want to, I
annoying.
just don't want to listen to him anymore.
He's
Cause
no
like
fun.
if everybody just collectively ignored him, he would just diminish and wither and go away because he's feeding off of everybody's fucking energy
It's
that
just
they give
weird.
him.
It's
It's
just weird.
annoying.
Yeah, he was not very not very professional at his
No,
job.
I don't. If I said half the shit that guy said at work, I'd been fired forever ago. Like
Yeah.
I don't, it blow. Yeah. Anyway, that's
Yeah.
also we could talk just about that
Yeah.
presidency at some
I
time if
don't
we wanted to. But
I
I
don't
also
really
don't
want
want
to.
to. Yeah, I was like at the same time
Yeah.
I don't want to because it's
Well,
finally
and
over.
and picking one president to talk about all the shitty things they done, you could do that with every president. We could
Oh
have a
yeah.
whole podcast where every day, every episode, we just talk about how shitty a politician is.
Well, the funny thing is it's like with the two political parties, like whoever's side it doesn't have their party member as the president bitches about the other, you know what I mean? And then they bitch about the same things both times.
Yeah.
People bitch about like Biden slipping up when he's talking, and I'm like, did you not listen to Trump speak for the last 4 years? He said that. I mean,
What does
he's
that
a
even
horrible
matter?
speaker. So but that's what I mean. I'm like, you guys are all, you just nitpick the president because it's not your guy from your
How's about the
team in
fact
the
that
office.
neither of them have any like fucking scientific degrees or
Oh
philosophical
yeah.
degrees or know nothing about anything and haven't had real jobs ever? Like what's there to fucking enjoy about any of it?
Well, originally the offices were designed to be held by your everyday people who did work their day-to-day
I don't know.
menial
I don't know if that's
jobs.
ever happened.
But well, I mean, I think it
I
did
guess
when when the
yeah,
country was first
when it
created,
was
it
all
was.
farmers anyway.
But over time
Yeah.
you end up with the career politicians, which is the antithesis of how they wanted the government to be run. Anyway, how
Antithesis.
did we get here? We went from defunding the police to
Well,
presidents.
just
It's the
a
same thing
meandering road.
basically.
But yeah, I mean, the they'll cut budgets until the people are robbing and stealing from the mayor,
And
and
then
the
they'll
mayor's
boost the
gonna
budget.
fucking get the budget back or whatever. I
I
don't
think
know.
that's exactly. I think I feel like the takeaway is that they need to find a way to just reappropriate the funds in a more meaningful way in terms of like giving them police officers better training, but then also finding a way to fund other programs like cahoots where it's like
Yeah,
if you get a
that's
call
cool. I like that idea for sure.
you get a call about somebody who's suicidal, instead of sending a police officer, say, hey, we'll send the cahoots guys, and then they can call the
Well,
cops
yeah,
if
like
it really escalates to a
do they
situation.
own a firearm? They don't own a
Yeah.
firearm. Okay, let's send a group of people who are there for crisis management and
Mhm.
see what happens. And maybe
Yeah,
you send one police officer whose job
just
is
kind
to
of
wait.
stands back, yeah, just
Well,
to make
they're
sure
not
that
even in the
things.
room. They're like,
Yeah.
on the road, ready to go if they need
Yeah,
to.
that's what I mean. Just kind of
But
there so that they can
and then
respond.
and then the cahoots person gets shot or stabbed to death, and you got to fucking reevaluate how that works. So, you know, until we get rid of human nature, which won't happen
Never happen.
it
Yeah.
won't happen without a ton of force and some real unethical shit.
And some like drugs that just take your
Yeah,
emotions away.
it is kind of important to look at like as living conditions and wars go down, living conditions go up, wars go down, with a lot of it has to do with uh, democracies and capitalism and with women being educated, as we see this first world kind of benefits, um, maybe just do more of that.
Yeah.
I don't know, because that seems to make things better.
Well, the more lives that you improve through creating better environments and stuff, I mean, just factually, I think the crime
Medicine,
rates will go down.
technology, all
Yeah.
that stuff is really added um, to our ability to like spread the wealth around. And yeah, I don't know.
You're never going to completely annihilate crime because there's just people who are born with fucked up wiring and they're gonna
Well, they
be.
cheat. They're just
Yeah.
cheaters.
Yeah.
Like if you look at game theory, even like monkeys do it.
Hmm.
It's just they exploit situations, and
Yep.
they want it to be easier for themselves. And some people don't do that, and some people are more group oriented, and some people are stealing for their family. It's fucking complicated. I broke like 3 laws just sitting here.
Damn.
Yeah, well, you can't
Damn.
tell what I'm doing under the desk here.
Oh yeah, that's probably for the best.
Probably.
You
So
fucking
let's
fool.
call it for the evening, and we'll do some recommendations, and then we'll get out
Yeah,
of here.
that's good. That was a good chat. Good
Yeah, it was fun.
exploration of the topic. What we got for recommendation?
Ooh, I hit my ear ball. Boo 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 boo. I think I'm going to recommend, and I may have already mentioned it at one point, but a new movie is on. Not a new movie; it's a fucking old movie, but it's now available on Netflix. It is called Mystery Men, and it's super funny and fun and interesting and
Isn't
witty, and
the Ben Stiller movie, right? Where they're like a kind of like a superhero. Okay.
they're
Okay.
like there's like
Or
no
sort of a
real
super.
superpowers in the world. It's just a
Okay.
weird world. There's like kind of some weird slight supernatural stuff going on, but for the most part they're just like people, and they dress up and they have superpowers, and or they don't have superpowers, but they have like their identity, their super identity. And it's a comedy. It's like a parody of superhero stuff, but it's just fun and easy to watch, and I
Hmm.
recommend it.
Yeah, I think I've seen parts of it, but I've never actually sat down and like
Yeah,
watched it from front to back
it's got
in
amazing
one go.
cast. It's got yeah, Ben Stiller, Janine Garofalo is in it. It's got Steve who played Pee Wee Herman Rubens, I think his name is.
I
Um,
didn't even know like I had a real
it's
name. I
got
just
William
figured his
William
name
H
was Pee Wee.
Macy. It's got Eddie Izzard. Um, who else does it have? It has a ton of people in it. Um, Another person with names. So, yep,
Very nice.
yeah, that's it. What's your recommendation?
I'm actually recommending a movie as well. I'm still working through that Book of M book. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that'll be a recommendation. It's hitting a bit of a slog in the middle that I'm hoping will pick up. Anyway, but my actual recommendation is also a movie that ties in well with our topic today. It's a movie that just came out. I think it came out late last year, or maybe the very beginning of this year. It's called Crown Vic.
Hmm.
And it stars Thomas Jane, and it follows. So he plays like a more veteran, like 25 plus year career cop, and he's been partnered with a brand new. I don't know if he's brand new, but he's new to the city. He's like a rookie cop basically. And the movie chronicles that they're just like first night together. Um, so it has kind of a loose plot that involves these guys who rob a gun store and kill a cop, these like cop killers that are out on the loose. But the movie's almost more just like it's almost like watching an episode of Cops if it had really high production values. But it's actually like an interesting movie, and I thought it was kind of a brave movie for them to do and release because of all the tumultuous stuff involving the police in our society right now. Um, but it's an interesting movie because it's sort of pro police, but also not. Like it kind of strikes this balance between like the good and bad that the police offer. Like the characters that it follows are mostly like decent cops that are trying to do the right thing, and then there's these like vice cops that they run into a few times throughout the movie, and one of them is like an unhinged Iraq war vet who is like very obviously mentally unstable, and like they even talk about how they have like a Deadpool going with him for how soon he's just going to off himself.
Wow.
um, and then they get into some altercations with those guys throughout the movies and like how extreme one of them is behaving. But it's a really good movie. It's not it was like a couple hours. But it just kind of follows them through the night as they're, just doing traffic stops. Like there's some very mundane situations they're in, and then some like more heightened ones. And it's kind of an exploration of like the sort of disillusioned veteran cop who's just kind of done and has a very strong opinion about how things are and is just sort of living with it. And then the more young, idealistic kind of rookie cop who's like kind of almost more like the schoolboy heroic type that wants to just do good and thinks that his moral compass is always pointing the correct way. And then obviously they find themselves in situations throughout the movie where it tests that moral compass and
Hmm.
like the more gray line that they sometimes have to ride, even though they're supposed to be upholders of the law.
Yeah.
Um,
Where did you watch that? What?
I rented it on Amazon. It was like $4 to rent.
Yeah.
It's
Nice.
so it was really good. I think you would enjoy it actually. It's a good movie. There's a great like kind of speech at the end of the movie about like at the police where like the veteran cop talks about how the world is always going to need like hard men that are willing to go out and do these dirty things and these like deal with these nasty things.
Hmm.
And like the society's always going to need that, but society's also going to fucking hate you for it. Like it's just a really like poignant like speech that he kind of gives. That's not like verbatim what he says,
And then he goes like,
but
"Okay, bye. I gotta go.
yeah, no, it's that's
Peace."
kind of like the essence is that like
Yeah.
society requires people who are willing to go out and deal with
Yeah.
these things, but also they're just gonna judge you and hate you for
It's
trying
like
to do your
it's like
best.
Batman.
Yeah,
You live long enough to become
villain.
the villain,
Yeah,
or you something else. I don't know. Rick and Morty quote that line as well.
but no, it's
Yeah,
it's a good movie.
cool.
I can understand though.
Crown ass Vic.
Yeah, if you don't want to watch it, it's in terms of, if you're particularly sensitive to what's going on with the police, like as a listener, you may not want to watch it. But if you're curious about it and just kind of want to get some extra insight, they even make comments
Just a
about like
movie.
the budget restrictions that they have. Because like one of the things is that their car doesn't even have a working dash cam and they haven't
Yeah,
had the budget to fix it in like years and stuff. So
yeah,
um,
yeah.
yeah,
It's definitely
it was a
not
good
like
movie.
a like the cops just have all the money in the world to like
No,
have like perfect equipment and perfect training and perfect
yep, it's more like a
psychological assessments and
it's like
things.
more like a rundown Chicago precinct kind of thing where they're
Yeah.
just trying to get by.
Well, if you think the government is essentially like the mob, then the police are just the enforcers.
Mhm.
Sorry, I didn't mean to bring it back to that.
No, I'm sure you didn't.
I didn't. So yeah, good recommendations, and I think we're gonna wrap it up.
Yeah, it
All right.
was a good episode.
So listeners and watchers, make sure to like, subscribe, share, put comments down. What are your opinions on the matter? We would be interested. We'll check those out. And make sure to go to joesnotesblog.com for any of the notes that I'll make on this. And what I would like for anybody who's listening or watching or checking this out, if you like what we're doing, share it with somebody. Just share it with one person who might enjoy it. And I would appreciate that. We can get a few more people checking us out. And as always, go to Amazon and type in Channing Cornwall and check out his books. He's got
Mm-hmm.
new ones coming out pretty soon. And before they come out, you should read the previous two Western Sins books. What are the names of those again, Channing?
So the first one on the Western Sins trilogy is Hell Came With Her. It's
Hell
kind of like
does.
a pulpy, like almost rape revenge Western. And
Rape
then
Revenge, the old RRW.
yeah, and then the second book is Breathed Out by God, which is more of
Mhm.
almost like a contemplative religious
They definitely have
book.
different tones to them.
And then the third book is in the process of being written. Hopefully, will be finished before the year's out and available for people to read. That kind of brings the characters from those first two books together for one last kind of endeavor. Um,
Nice.
but if you're not into series, this is the only the books I've written that are part of like a series. The rest of the stuff I've written are all just kind of one-off,
Yeah.
different genres. Anathema is kind of a horror mystery novel set in the 1920s on the Oregon
Oh,
coast.
dude, I'm interrupting you right now.
Go for it.
I was on the coast today or this weekend, not today.
Did
So
you go to
work today.
Nescoin?
I did. We drove right by
Yeah,
Nisquin and I took some photos. So I'll send you some photos of
yeah.
Nisquin.
That's one of the few times where I wrote a book and Vanessa and I actually went there and I
Oh,
like
did
kind of
you?
scouted the
Yeah.
location.
Yeah.
Like
It's a
I
tiny
wanted to
little
be there.
tiny
Yeah.
nothing town.
Hmm.
But I drove by and I was like, oh, that's fucking Nesquin. I remember that. That was from that book. So I took a photo of just like the sign that says Nesquin.
Well, it's one of the few times I based like one of my books in like a real place.
Yeah.
that, I mean, obviously I play with the history of it a little
You
bit
did?
because it's a fiction.
I don't
Some
know.
of it, not some of it is like, obviously for the sake of the book you had to put some things in there, but a lot of the things of the history of that area I actually just put in the book.
Oh, wow.
Like as far as there were Native American tribes that lived in that area, and when white settlers showed up, they had just found the sites abandoned and they never
Hmm.
found out why. So
Yeah.
that was a fun thing that I like, a real historical thing that I was able to put in the book, and then
Nice.
like use that as kind of a jumping off point for some of the events of the
Cool.
book. But anyway, so there's Anathema. It's like a horror mystery period book, and then there's The World Carried On, which is kind of a more dystopian sci-fi, almost Lord of the Rings-esque kind of journey
Yeah.
story.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Kind of
and
a
then plenty of other
post-apocalyptic.
ones. Yeah,
Yeah.
plenty of other stuff too. I won't go through everything here, but I'm just
Yeah.
pointing out that if you're not interested in starting a series necessarily, you don't have to. You want to write a series.
Sure. Well, and you can read them not necessarily episodically anyway.
Mhm.
Cool. That's it. Thanks for checking us out. Thanks for listening. Thank you, Channing. And we'll see you next time.
Yeah, toodaloo.